Hey everybody. Just a couple of thoughts on JD Farag's latest Mideast prophecy update from January 6th, 2019. Uh, again, for the record, I know this man is well loved and well liked by a lot of people. I do think he is a sincere, honest, hardworking man of God. I do think I appreciate the fact that he preaches the gospel at the end of every one of his messages. That's truly wonderful. He reaches a lot of people. I would love to see him do even more of that. I am fully in his camp and supporting him in that effort. And I believe he's got some good teaching out there as well. I've watched several of his videos that are not related to this particular subject. However, I have also listened, and you're probably not going to believe this, but I have listened to almost every one of his hundreds of Mideast prophecy update videos. I have a job where I can listen to ministry in the background as I work on many things that I do. So that's how I'm able to do a lot of stuff like this. But my point is, this man is a good man, but he is woefully mistaken with his Mideast prophecy updates, and I really wish he would change his approach. I wish he would stop doing them entirely and just focus on the gospel. But if he's going to do these updates, I wish he would tone it down. So here's a great example this morning. I couldn't believe it when I heard him. Well, he's said things like this in the past, but it's just a very good example of how guys like him just get stuck. They get stuck in a quagmire of their own making. He can't do anything to get out of this quagmire unless he just owns up to the fact that he really doesn't know what he's talking about because he's not God. And I don't know why this has to be so hard. JD, you're not God. You don't know the future. God did not tell you or any of us his plans. He is not showing us his plans through the newspaper. It's just not that hard to understand because clearly we don't know what's going on because nobody is ever right about anything. So here we are again. It's now 2019. I'm going to let him talk a bit, and then I'm going to play a video from 5 years ago that should be kind of interesting.
When we started doing these prophecy updates 13 years ago now, started in 2006, and here we are, and it's 2019.
So perfectly positioned. He's admitting that I've been doing this for 13 years. Now, I want to give you a quick background in case you hadn't watched this entire video. Basically, he's talking about Syria, the destruction of Damascus, the alignment of nations in that region, and how all of them coming together are clearly, in his words, a fulfillment of the Ezekiel prophecies, of the Zechariah prophecies, of the Psalm 83 prophecies. This is all part of the destruction of Damascus, which has to happen before Ezekiel. I'm not quite sure why. I've never really seen anybody put that together, but whatever. It's all about, we are reading in the news what is in the pages of the Bible, just as, quote unquote, God told us it would happen. And so this is a Syria situation update that he's doing.
It was to sound the alarm to wake up a sleeping church. I remember it as if it was only yesterday when the Lord had really impressed upon my heart, very heavily upon my heart, that we were entering into a time in human history that was the likes of which we had never seen before, nor would we ever see again.
Yeah, he does say that. And see, that's my first problem with JD Farag is, wait a second. Is that not just a little bit of hyperbole? Really? You're a man looking at the entire scope of history, and you're proclaiming that God told you that we are about to enter into a time of unprecedented things. And I'm assuming he means, fulfillment of prophecy because of all the videos he's made about this. But just that statement alone JD, this is where it's a real serious issue. This is not playtime, man. You are standing behind a pulpit, by the way, which has gotten very large since you started 13 years ago. You now have 100,000 people a week minimum listening to your messages. That's one of the largest churches in the world. So I know that might frighten some people. If I was you, I'd be a lot more careful about your words. I mean, 100,000 people. And you just said, quote, the Lord impressed on my heart, meaning the Lord told him that he was like, JD, I'm going to tell you what the future holds here. I'm going to reveal to you what's going to happen in the near future. Do you understand the gravity of what he just said? He just made himself a prophet that talks about big subjects like the entire world and all of human history. It's all culminating right now. And I just stood in my pulpit, which is a place of authority. And I just by authority invested in this pulpit in front of 100,000 people proclaimed to all of you before God that he told me the future of this world, the near future of this world. Again, keep in mind, if he just said, well, I read the Bible and the Bible tells us how the world is going to end someday. So we all know how it's going to end. Okay, that's one thing. That's fine. Everybody can say that if you believe the biblical prophecies as, written and interpreted by many people. That's one thing. But you went a really big step further and said, God told me what's soon coming, right in these days that we live in. Keep in mind, he's also stated several times, we are the last generation. Not we might be, not it looks like we could be, not it's possible that we are. We are. And God impressed on my heart that this is coming. I mean, JD, this is not playtime. You don't make statements like that without really, really serious consideration as to what you're doing. I'm just speaking as a brother here. Why do people do this? So here we are, just reminding you, he's talking about Syria and he's talking about the things coming together. And now he's bringing up the past, which is probably not a great idea for him to do because he's left all of his videos on YouTube.
That truly we were entering into the last moments of world history as we know it.
Yep, and see, there it is, right there. God impressed on J.D. Farag that truly we were entering into the last moments of world history as we know it. And now I'm going to stand up here as a pastor with a pulpit with authority and tell everybody that's what this is. Wow. Just wow. I just, wow. God has great mercy on us, man. I'll tell you that much. I'm sure I would have been killed 40 years ago for opening my mouth. But I mean, this is just unbelievable. Unbelievable. Here's what's mostly unbelievable to me, that a man of his stature and ability or stature and apparent love for the Lord could be so deceived. And then not only be so deceived, but just pass that deception on to hundreds of thousands of people, possibly millions of people, and just think nothing of it. Well, anyway, I'm going to keep going because you'll see what I mean in a second.
And that now was the time to begin to teach and talk about Bible prophecy because his return was drawing near. Now, 13 years later, it's also to shine the light in a world getting darker by the day. I have to confess that if you were to ask me back in 2006, even 2007, if I would have believed that we would see what we're seeing in the year 2019, I would have probably
what
argued with you in disbelief that
this is where,
I mean, think about this. This is before Obama was president.
in disbelief that
put it
what?
in perspective.
In disbelief that
That
what,
would come
JD?
two years later in 2008. And it's, who would have ever imagined
What? So he never
that we
really.
would have Donald Trump as the president of the
Okay,
United
now
States
hang on. He
in
never answered. He never
2016,
finishes his sentence. He,
and that he would be so pro-Israel and so pro-Christian and do what no one would ever dare do and declare Jerusalem the capital of Israel and even relocate the U.S. embassy there.
I'm gonna play this back again.
Kind of interesting. I hope you don't mind,
He,
Guy. He
then,
gave me something.
then he goes off.
19, I would have, if I would have believed that we would see what we're seeing in the year 2019, I would have probably argued with you in disbelief that, I mean, think about this. This is before Obama was president.
Okay, so I'm sorry to be focused on this, but he never finished that sentence. And I am speculating to death here, but I'm basing it on what I know he says all the time. So keep in mind, this is a guy that every week gets on YouTube and tells 100,000 people Jesus is coming soon. And here's the news from the last week and the news of the upcoming week that could happen. And here's why we know it's soon. So we're talking about a guy who believes Jesus' return is like not 100 years from now. It's not 50. It's probably not even 10. It's probably weeks, months, maybe a year or two away. Always a year or two away at the most. Always. So he just got through saying, like, admitting to everybody that it's been 13 years since he started doing this and we're still here. And that 12 years ago, he would have been not believing you if you told him that we would see these things happen in 2019. And I'm like, I'm listening to this morning and I'm saying, what do you mean you wouldn't have believed it? Are you saying you didn't know these things were going to happen, JD? Because you say the Bible tells us exactly what's going to happen in the end of the end. And here we are at the end of the end. And the Bible clearly tells us what will happen. So you should have known 12 years ago that this stuff was going to happen, not be in disbelief that it was going to happen. You would have been telling them, hey, oh, I already know what's going to happen. I already know there's going to be a Syrian crisis and the countries around Syria and Israel will get together. I already know what's going to happen. I mean, that's awesome that that's going to happen so quickly. I'm just, this is crazy, and but I already know. So he couldn't be saying that it's unbelievable that was going to happen. So then, what does he mean? Does he mean then I'm stunned that 12 years ago I would have argued with you that we would still be here to see it happen? Okay, well that makes a little more sense, but here's the problem with saying that. JD 12 years ago, I guarantee you, never would have guessed we would still be here 12 years later watching this stuff happen. He would have guessed 12 years ago, we're going to be in heaven. We're never going to see any of this happen. So if that's what he's saying, he's got a different problem now. Because now he has to admit, in the back of his head, to any observing people like myself who have watched all of his videos, I was wrong 12 years ago about how close we were. Because here we are 12, 13 years later, and nothing has happened yet. So why? Here's the big important question you all need to ask yourselves. Why should I believe what JD is saying now? Not because JD is a bad guy, not because JD is evil, not because JD is doing anything. Just he's a human being and he doesn't really know what he's saying. So here we are, August 29th of 2013. A little background. Someone in Syria, they think that some people say Assad, some people say the terrorists, whatever, had just gassed thousands of people and killed them in this horrific thing. And in response, the U.S. sent some warships into the Gulf, and it was kind of looking a little bit hot, okay? And so here comes some people from Syria saying, look, if you guys don't like what happened here and you come and attack us, we're going to hit all the targets in Israel. We're going to hit the U.S. We're not going to sit here and let you do that. Meanwhile, Russia at the same time was making comments like that. Well, if you guys attack Damascus here and if you guys respond and retaliate in response to this poison gas thing, and we're on Syria's side. You better watch out. So Russia's thrusting its, chest out and making all these Okay, so it looked really like, oh my goodness, this could explode into something really bad. And of course, these people are delighted to see this happening because that's the end, right? Damascus is going to be leveled and all that. So here's JD on the 29th. So he has a special update in the middle of the week. He does this every once in a while when something huge happens.
You're telling me that if Syria is attacked, whether it's by the U.S. or Israel or whoever it is, if Israel is attacked, then the neighbors are going to get involved. Who are the neighbors? Zechariah 12, the surrounding, neighboring people. Psalm 83, these are the surrounding neighbors that will get involved once this Damascus, Syria prophecy is fulfilled, and it is about to be fulfilled.
So first of all, yikes. Here he is standing there telling people to their face, this is about to be fulfilled. And he's putting this on camera and on tape, and it's still out there on YouTube. And now I'm making another copy of it now. So he's on record as saying this.
I mean, I don't know how else to say it.
How about don't say
but
it?
But if this is not Isaiah 17 being fulfilled right before our very eyes, then, I mean, what could it be?
Just something else in the news?
I was thinking, interesting, this afternoon, I was kind of thinking, and this is, I know they have clinical terms for this way of thinking, but I kind of went back about 20 years. And I, sort of in a fictional way, was trying to think what the headlines would look like at the time that Isaiah 17 was being fulfilled. So in other words, I would, turn on the news, Fox and CNN and the, three major networks, and who would be on there and what would they be saying? And as God is my...
So just let me pause. He's admitting to you that his imagination is going here. He's imagining what they would say. He is a human being, and he's sitting around thinking about this one day, and he's concocting what he thinks would happen in his own mind. But again, he's admitting that this is not from God. God didn't tell him what the headlines would be. He's imagining what the headlines would look like, right?
Witness. What I imagined would need to be the news at the time that Isaiah 17 was fulfilled is exactly what's on the news, as even now Isaiah 17 is being fulfilled.
That's your imagination. And what does the Bible say about man's imagination? Go look it up. I'm not saying all imagination is evil and everybody is evil if they imagine things. I imagine things all the time. But he's standing behind a pulpit and he is declaring things from the pulpit that God has said and shown him to talk about. He has told us all that God told him to do this. God has told me to bring this message to you. And it is being fulfilled right now, Isaiah 17. And I imagine these headlines, and look, they're coming to pass. Do you see how he's creating a kind of a world that you have to buy into? It's J.D. Farag's world that you just enter into and become part of and start listening to and understanding and buying and building on. This isn't the Bible. This is J.D. Farag's world. It's a fun world to hang out in. If you're this type of person that likes this type of thing, I can totally understand why you love him. It's really fun to sit, but this is what I'm trying to say. This is not playtime. These are important subjects. This is the Bible we're talking about. This is the name of God we're talking about. And JD and hundreds more like him routinely are getting into the public eye on YouTube in front of millions of people collectively and using the Bible in the name of God in this manner. And then when they're wrong, they're like, meh, you know, oh well, I'll just do it again next week. Because watch, listen to what he says.
Oh, Pastor, you're just, this is, you've been saying this for a long time now. Yes, I have.
Keep in mind, this is 2013. He's already telling us he's been saying it for a long time. And we're going to be 6 years this August from when he said this one. How much longer has it been now?
But, man, this is it. I mean, how can this not be it? If this is not it, and the U.S. brings the warships back and Russia says, okay, sorry, no problem, let's all go home, no worries, and everything just kind of dissipates, then I will be the first to offer a formal apology for getting all excited about this being Isaiah 17. I promise you I'll do that. If this is not it, and the U.S. brings the warships back and Russia says, okay, sorry, no problem, let's all go home, no worries, and everything just kind of dissipates, then I will be the first to offer a formal apology for getting all excited about this being Isaiah 17. I promise you I'll do that.
I have not seen JD do this yet. In fact, this is one of 2 times I know of where he made a statement like this. A couple of years later, he made another rash, ridiculous statement like that, and then promised, I'll take it back and apologize if I'm wrong. And he never took it back either, because clearly he was wrong. So no, Russia didn't apologize and whatnot. Okay. But the U.S. removed its ships. Nothing happened. This is it. Turned out to be a false prophecy. So just from this video alone, guys, J.D. Farag is a false prophet. J.D. Farag should be quiet. He should take down all of his videos and sit down and stop prophesying. J.D. Farag is a false prophet. He just set himself up to be one, and we all know he was wrong. And yet, J.D. Farag is allowed to not only make a false prophetic statement, he's also allowed to admit, if I'm wrong, I will apologize, and then not even do that. And not one person that I know of has held this guy accountable. Just for that. Just hold him accountable just for that. And then say, JD, I love you. You're wonderful. But go back to preaching the gospel and stuff you know. Because nobody knows what God's plans are for the future.
The problem is I don't fancy myself doing that anytime soon, if at all.
Yeah.
I've always, kind of seen this as, how do you push the pause button?
Let me point out the arrogance of that comment he just made. I mean, lovely man. He's so wonderful and nice. And look at how kind he is. He's just like lovable, cuddly, loving teddy bear. Meanwhile, he's terribly arrogant. I don't see myself. I can just declare something like this in front of all these people and think nothing of it, that I might be wrong. Make some like offhanded remark like, I'll apologize if I'm wrong. I'm not wrong. Give me a break. There's no way I'm wrong. Now, by the way, JD can't go back and say, well, I'm still right because we're still moving ahead. Syria is still going in the direction I said 6 years ago, just because it's been 6 years. I mean, goodness gracious, what's 6 years? That's a blink of an eye, man. I was still no. You said if they pull the ships out and all this goes away, I will apologize. So first of all, he's not allowed to get away with that. He said if this event today that I'm talking about turns into nothing, I will apologize. And then second of all, I just need to point out, if 6 years later it's still JD is still right, and that 6 years is nothing, and who cares how much time has passed because it's really nothing in the grand scheme. 2 things about that. Number one, then he needs to stop saying soon because he's misleading everybody, because he doesn't really mean soon. He means could be hundreds of years for all we know, because everything's in a blink of an eye to God. But number 2, why couldn't it be hundreds more years? If it's already been this long since he started talking, and that's really soon, why couldn't it be another 13, 20, 30, 50, 100 years? And if so, then what's the point of all the hype? What's the point of all the constant urgency? Get the gospel in front of people and tell them that they need to be saved today because they do not know what tomorrow brings. I could fall over dead before I finish this video. And so could J.D. Farag. By the grace of God, we're still breathing. Nobody knows what the day of their time that their end will come. Nobody. In the time it took me to make this video, hundreds of thousands of people died in their sins and went to hell. Meanwhile, 0 people have missed any rapture since the beginning of time. Can we get back to preaching what we know? Again, I'm going to get a microscopic, tiny fraction of the number of views that J.D. Farag gets on this video. I just hope that the right people, I just hope somebody, maybe from his church, will see this and go, hey man, maybe that's right. Maybe some of us at the church, maybe the elders should get together and kind of get with JD and tell him like, hey, listen, man, love you, wonderful work you're doing with the gospel, but let's stop with the prophecy updates. I sincerely hope so for the sake of the gospel and the sake of the church's reputation as a truth-bearing light in this world. We're supposed to tell the truth in a world full of lies. Hey, feel free to comment in my videos, disagree vehemently with me. Please do. Go ahead. I will not block you. I will not remove you simply for disagreeing with me. If you're going to argue with me, though, you better get ready because I ain't afraid. I will argue back. I will answer you back. I'm not afraid of arguing. I'm not afraid of disagreement. I'm not afraid of being wrong, by the way. Because, by the way, I will apologize if I'm wrong. I already have. Have a great day. Thanks.